I'm glad there's some backlash. I just wish the backlash was even broader than Epstein, but also onto policies that impact people's daily lives.
Well, that's just not going to happen.
This is what happens when you do a Google image search. Literally, I just went to Google and typed in Epstein in the image search. This is what you get. The first photo. That's the first photo. You actually have to type in the name Epstein with Bill Clinton to get this photo. But the point of me even going down this road with you is that this is much like Israel. This is one of those issues that everyone is guilty, where everyone is guilty. Everyone who has any kind of a realistic chance at pulling the reins of power, even slightly, is associated with this motherfucker. So, I mean, that's where I come from as far as the Epstein issue goes. Okay, great. Like, yeah, I wish they would release the files. I think it's clear that they're lying about it. We all know why they're lying. We all know why Dan Bongino came out and was like, oh, God, I guess he did actually kill himself. Like, we all know why Kash Patel's like, oh, yeah, nothing to see here. Even though I spent years screaming about, like, because Bill Clinton, because this guy was tied up with it, we spent years screaming at it. But now that this guy is our boss, oh, yeah, it was like, nothing to see here. It's just, it's cartoonish how clear what's going on with that is. Now, I will say this. It's interesting that suddenly it's a thing for Democrats because, you guys are equally as guilty here. But because it's like an arrow in Trump's heart, or it's something that's like going to hinder his agenda in some way, now it's like, oh, release the files. It's just like, and I don't want to pat myself on the back too hard to the point where I fall over here. But when I called this election, basically, I said, I want the Trump people to win, because if the Democrats win, all this nonsense will continue and liberals will continue to defend it. But if Trump wins, suddenly liberals will be against the genocide. Liberals will be about releasing the Epstein files. Liberals might be against the Ukraine war. Well, I went a little too far with the Ukraine war thing because they want to keep that one going. They've really been conditioned to believe that that's like the good war. Again, though, the basis for the liberal hysteria over Putin controlling the election and ruining their lives by getting Trump elected over their god Hillary, that is disproven completely now. And you're going to have these guys like the podcast Save America dudes, Jesus Christ. Oh, they're never going to let go of it being not real because they've built entire armies on it. And I given all the things that have been so fake I just don't understand how anyone can cling to this two-party narrative anymore. I don't understand how, especially my generation and down, like my kids they're wise to all this shit. They know like Bernie Sanders and AOC are sellouts. They know that they're like just calling something racist and right wing isn't like, doesn't allow you, give you the opportunity to just dismiss it anymore. Like they're wise to all this shit. So this ain't gonna change. But let's start with let's not start with, but as far as clips go, this clip of Ian Carroll talking to Joe Rogan from a few months ago is a lot more relevant now. And I just want to say too, again, with Ian Carroll, I see this like tendency with a lot of left talkers to be like, oh, he's a op, he's a secret spy for something or other. And like, maybe he's backed by something. I don't think so. I really don't. Like but maybe I'm wrong. I'm very skeptical, but also you don't get popular saying the kind of shit that he's saying here typically, which I guess is maybe one of the reasons why a lot of people believe that he's a secretly funded by the deep state or whatever. But like, even with someone like Rogan, it's like, I think Rogan now, people, I make jokes about like Mike Baker, and he has these handlers that come through and these people that he kind of, but people act like Joe Rogan's supposed to be like journalist of the year and push back against people when they come in, like Kash Patel, for example. It's like, dude, he pushes back as much as he can, but he's also trying to have a friendly conversation. And you have to give credit to people like Joe Rogan and Theo Von at this point for doing the little bit that they do, because even like someone like Theo Von has far bigger balls than anyone on CNN or MSNBC or Fox. As far as I saw his interview with Joaquin Phoenix, he had Joaquin Phoenix giving him props for talking about the genocide. You know what I mean? Like, this trajectory towards recognizing the error of our ways on foreign policy in the Middle East, for example, it really broke through into the mainstream because of the MAGA people in the right wing talk space. But anyway, let's watch this clip of Ian speaking with Joe Rogan, and this is from March of 2025, so it's from a few months ago.
Possessed by a D-book, which is like a Yiddish word for a evil demon.
So he's talking about Les Wexner here, who is Epstein's main funder, the guy who ran like Victoria's Secret and like
drives him for more and more and more and more. This is in his own words.
Is he being hyperbolic? Is
A
he
little
joking
bit.
around? Like,
No.
I'm possessed by a demon that just wants more and more. I just want to be successful.
No, I mean, I wasn't in the room, but I assume based upon the wording and how it's put,
Let's find it.
it's like
I want to read that.
it's like a billionaire. I mean, it's in the text. It's directly quoted in the text in One Nation Under Blackmail, actually, which is in that backpack.
One Nation Under Blackmail?
One Nation Under
Is that
Blackmail by
what
Whitney
he's
Webb. Highly recommend, but it's super dense. It's a hard read. I've read it 3 times now, and I still am taking notes and trying to look things up to understand it because she's just so researched. And it's things like this where she's gone.
So, and also, I just want to pause there for a second and give Ian credit, because he's plugging Whitney Webb's book right there to Joe Rogan, and he got a lot of shit for like using some of her data without like giving her enough credit or whatever. He advocated for Joe to bring her on the show afterwards several times. So props to Ian Carroll. I think there's a lot of jealousy because he kind of came up faster than a lot of people through TikTok, and I think a lot of people are just mad about that. But you know what? If someone comes up to me with evidence that he's a secret Fed or whatever that looks credible, I mean, I'll admit I'm wrong,
back to the original like article where they were interviewing him, and he's just like a CEO. So they're just asking him, "What's your secret to success?" And he's like, "I'm possessed by I have a drive for more." And he chose the word D-book, which is a Yiddish word.
So this is from New York Magazine interview.
That's exactly the source.
He says, and now perhaps it's time to reintroduce Leslie Wexner's D-book, the demon that always wakes up in the morning with Wexner and tweaks and pulls at him. When he was a boy, his father called it tummel, a churning. So he feels molten and unformed, pricked by these spiritual pins and needles. He met this demon again when he was 40 and already worth $500 million. When he climbed the mountain in front of the house in Vale and almost froze to death and decided to change his life. This demon he calls terminal Schwilkes, which makes him wander from house to house, repeating the pattern of his childhood on a luxurious scale, wanting more, swallowing companies larger than his own. It is precisely the reason that Wexner has $1 billion and doesn't stop at, say, $5 million and a new Mercedes every other year, and what he calls normal life. Bridge on Wednesdays and bar mitzvahs on Saturdays, and the Winding Hollow Country Club in Columbus, which is like Buckingham Palace to him when he was 15.
Yeah, so that's just to point out that like he's a fucking weird dude.
Mm-hmm.
He's a sketchy dude. He's running 2 sex trafficking rings out of his companies that he doesn't know anything about, and simultaneously he founded. I mean, the Wexner Foundations and the Leslie Wexner Heritage Foundation. Those are also very interesting and controversial. They're very tied to Israel because he is one of the foremost Israeli philanthropists.
So just to go back to the comments real quick, I don't think Rogan's an op. I think he's been cajoled into platforming so many Zionists. I totally agree. But you have to give him credit because no one else is having conversations like that or was on a mainstream platform. No one in fucking CNN is talking about Les Wexner or any of this fucking deeper shit on fucking Epstein, but also the Israel thing. Like, it's really the podcast world that has made the what's going on in Gaza a mainstream thing. And you have to credit Joe Rogan because he, obviously made podcasting a big thing. Theo Vaughn's one of his fucking minions, right? But anyway, also it's like the thing that really, where my brain went with the Ian Carroll thing is like, it was after this appearance that the like claims of him being an op really skyrocketed because of, again, much like with Daryl Cooper or anyone who's like suddenly a secret Nazi, Candace Owens. As soon as you start hearing these claims of, oh, this person's like a secret, they might be like a deep state op, or they're an anti-Semite, or they're this or that, it's because they're landing on some truths. Now, Nick Fuentes might be the Nick Fuentes types, I think, are an exception to this rule, because I really believe that people like Nick Fuentes are like kind of what Kirk Metzger calls human farts, where they're there to get their stink on you, like because Nick might say some shit that's like on point sometimes. Like sometimes I hear him talking, I go, oh fuck yeah, he's right, like he's nailing it, But then other times he's like when he starts a sentence with the Jews, then I'm like, okay, now I see why this guy is a thing, because he'll make some good points on some anti-war shit, but then he turns it into the race baiting, like it's the Jews thing, and then it becomes discredited as like, oh yeah, you're just a fucking anti-Semite, right? But I don't see that with Ian Carroll. He's not that kind of guy. He's not a human fart. He's a guy who's touching on things much like a Daryl Cooper that a lot of people are, and going deep into the weeds on them, like Candace Owens, the same thing. She's an anti-Semite now, of course,
despite being an American. But he founded what was called the Mega Group, which is it was not disclosed for a long time. It was secret. And it is a group of Jewish billionaires that get together on behalf of global Judaism, which is not uncommon, and there's nothing wrong with that if they're not committing crimes. But they would get together and meet, and it's people like Leslie Wexner, Charles Bronfman, the list is, we could look it up. And that group, it is unclear if we have proof that they were conducting espionage, but there are all of them have ties to organized crime through various elements. Like the Bronfmans were rum runners, as one example, that were then involved in the mob. Leslie Wexner's involved in these trafficking rings, etc. And that group seems to have been directly associated with Jeffrey Epstein. And she's one that she shows all the primary sources and like lays it all out. This is what we know, and this is where the source came from, and this is what it said, and these are possible explanations for it. Here's one or two or three explanations of what it might be, but we don't really know because this is as far as the evidence goes. And so Leslie Wexner is just one where there's all this swirling evidence all around him that in order for him to not be aware of what's going on and to not have been an active part of this is damn near unbelievable in my eyes, allegedly. But I'm sure glad it's him and not Jeffrey Epstein, who was deeply interested in all these same technologies. This is a whole other side of him that no one talks about, is his interest in technologists and geneticists and all those things, right?
Yeah, well, he had a lot of influence over scientists. That's a creepy move, to like take scientists and
throw
bring
parties for them, throw conventions for them. And a couple of them, a couple of them had some serious accusations.
Stephen Hawking and Bill Gates,
like Marvin Minsky, for example, but I bet a lot of them were not compromised. Like Stephen Hawking, everyone freaked out when Stephen Hawking was on the list, but it makes perfect sense as you realize that he was throwing conventions on that island for scientists specifically to bring them all together, because that way you get connections, you can get favors, even if you're not blackmailing them. Then they just want to be on your good side because you have all these connections and you can fund all their projects, and you become this integral part of this technological sort of space. That's
Blackmail's not the only tool. That's a blunt instrument. There's a lot of just connections.
He also just hooked people up with wives. Like, do you know that he claimed that he introduced Melania to Trump? Yeah, that's a crazy one. I suspect, Melania conspiracy time. I suspect that Melania has been whispering in Trump's ear. I think she was trafficked before, either bad trafficked or good, or just like knew Epstein and like knew that world a little bit. But I suspect that she's been whispering in his ear about what that really is and does and all that things, because she's been kind of like acting from the back a lot. But when you really dig into what Melania's been doing, she's very very active in anti-trafficking and in protecting traffic victims and
That
girls and
makes
stuff. And as Trump, when he married her, and then they have Barron, and he's watching his son grow up. So you have this young child, and you have this wife telling you about her previous life, probably, and just whispering in your ear that like, this could be your legacy. This could be your legacy. This could be your legacy, right? Because he used to be friends with those people, even though I don't think he was blackmailed, because I think that would have come out when the Democrats were going for him.
Right.
And maybe
Yeah, see, that's one thing. Like, so again, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I think for the most part this is a non-issue, much like Israel. It's like one of those things where both parties are so tied up in it, you're never going to find anyone who's completely innocent. But this is the point that I think he makes that's really good about this, is that if there was really something there with Epstein and Trump, it would have come out. Like I do really believe that, because they've thrown everything they could at him. If there was anything that they could have gleaned from this without getting themselves getting stained, they would have done it already. So I do think it is a distraction on a lot of levels. And like I said at the outset, I think, it's one of the things that Democrats went, oh, this has legs because Trump's people are mad that he's not being totally transparent about it.
he was involved in the trafficking a little bit because of the things that he bought and the people that he knew and like Roy Cohn connections. But I don't even know about that. But regardless, he knows the game. And then he marries Melania. And then more and more, like, he was in charge when Epstein went down. Mm-hmm. He was the only one that when Epstein got arrested and they were going around asking for dirt, he was like, I'll fully fucking cooperate. Fuck that guy. I'll tell you everything that I know. Yeah. And so I suspect that Melania has been instrumental in his sort of shift to being the only guy willing to go after those traffickers.
Out of all the information that's getting disclosed, supposedly this administration, what do you have the least faith that we're going to come to
Epstein,
a conclusion?
for sure.
Epstein.
And I think it's because of Israel. I
Really?
think that because I mean, when you really dig into Epstein, his entire network was Israel. It was clearly like Ehud Barak was the ex-prime minister and the ex-head of Israeli intelligence. Leslie Wexner was one of the most powerful pro-Israeli philanthropists. The whole organization was Israel. So and I'm not saying it was all of Israel.
It was all an intelligence gathering and
it was targeting Americans. It was targeting American officials and the American president.
Right.
And the CIA does have interest in those targets too. Elements in the CIA does. Certainly they had help from the CIA, and certainly they had help from these other organized crime and intelligence operations.
I'm going to jump over to Grayzone real quick to sum this up right now.
Massey watches the Grayzone, or if we're just on the same wavelength, but that's what I've been saying for day after days. Epstein is symbolic of something much bigger. I just said it. What the Trump base wanted was him to demonstrate that he wasn't part of this bipartisan hovercraft Davos elite of reptilian shapeshifter 0.1 percenters who feast on the adrenochrome of young children, according to all of the various conspiracies that drove the sense that Trump was going to take down the so-called pedophile elite, that he was seen as outside, a rogue billionaire who would take down that class of people. And of course he was one of them, and Epstein perfectly illustrates it. And so now that image of Trump is broken and his mystique has been broken. No one's going to take them on from within Washington. They control Washington. They can.
And so this I wanted to play because I think Max and Aaron here just eloquently sum up my thoughts on this like so well. And
control the presidency, and they control it also through the Israel lobby and through Trump's key backers like the Adelsons. And Jeffrey Epstein was deep in that world. He managed money for Les Wexner. Les Wexner was one of the founding members of the Mega Group of 50 Zionist billionaires who gathered in 1998 to basically, including Steven Spielberg, Ron Lauder, who is one of the most important Zionist billionaires Netanyahu works with in the U.S. I think Charles Kushner was involved. It goes on to basically reassert control, Israel's control over not just U.S. government, but Jewish life, as many Jewish Americans were becoming less and less interested in Israel. And they were at a dangerous impasse because of the Oslo Accords. They were concerned that Israel might actually turn toward peace. Netanyahu had come back in, and they needed to shatter obviously it was an absurd deal, but they needed to shatter that. They needed a more embattled Israel. They needed to mobilize Jewish Americans. They wanted to reinvigorate the narrative of the Holocaust in American life. But most importantly, They were all working they were networking together, and Jeffrey Epstein was part of that crowd. So it's another threat that I think Jeffrey Epstein presents to Trump world, and it's why they're shutting it down. But at the base, it's because Donald Trump is severely compromised by this relationship. And now it's over. As Thomas Massey said, it's not going away. And I'm not going to let it go away. I mean, there's so many other things we could be talking about, but I'm not going to stop talking about it.
In the same way that Russiagate channeled,
So I also think that the chances of stuff coming out under Trump, again, are a lot better than they would be if Kamala had got elected, for example. Because Trump's base is going to demand it from him. Even if it makes him look bad, it's not going to ruin his career. I mean, we're going to get into this a little more in just a second.
Genuine anti-Trump sentiment into like a dumb neocon conspiracy theory. Trump influencers have used the Epstein thing to distract from the fact that Trump ultimately serves the elite as well. Like this is what they were promised when it comes to accountability against the elite. And of course, because Trump's part of that elite, because he was friendly with Jeffrey Epstein. And obviously, it's not implausible that someone who's admitted to being a sexual predator, as Trump has some compromising stuff, and if I was a sexual predator, Jeffrey Epstein. And so they feel betrayed. But personally, I mean, while I get the betrayal, because people are channeled into stories and scandals that don't fundamentally challenge the real power in the country. I mean, I wish there was rage about Trump cutting Medicaid and cutting food stamps.
There it is.
And pushing through another tax cut for the ultra wealthy. That's where I really wish the rage from his base was, because that's where they're really being betrayed, in him, cutting social services and serving the ultra elite with his tax policies. And so,
that's communism, Aaron.
Yeah, right. Well, so, but anyway, this Epstein thing, yeah, it's finally like the chicken's coming home to roost. I mean, again, so many of Trump's, like Dan Bongino, so many people in Trump's orbit use this as well, and they promise so much. And so I'm glad there's some backlash. I just wish the backlash was even broader than Epstein, but also onto policies that impact people's daily lives.
Well, that's just not going to happen. And
well, that's just not going to happen. So I want to play one last clip for you. And this is was kind of a smear on Trump related to this Epstein thing that I had to share with you.
In an exhaustive round of personal interviews designed to help our judges discover what makes each one special.
You're 5'9" reading? Serious, huh? We may measure again tonight before the Okay. Thank you very much, Amy.
The concentration was intense inside the judge.
So I just wanted to show you a bit of this to show you that this Epstein thing, again, like Aaron and Max said, is kind of a distraction from the real betrayals of the Trump administration on actual fiscal policies. People are busy yapping about this while all kinds of other shit is going on. And I want to show you the people behind this, because this got me thinking, okay, Midas Touch. Who the fuck is Midas Touch, right? Do you know who they are? Midas Touch. So Midas Touch is an American progressive media company. The network describes itself as doing pro-democracy journalism. They have that in quotations, notice. Previously, the Midas Touch name was used by its founders for a liberal American political action committee formed in March 2020 with the purpose of stopping the re-election of Donald Trump. In other words, this is a grift on dumb liberals in the 2020 United States presidential election. They've already failed twice at their mission. The super PAC aligned with the Democratic Party in the 2020 United States presidential election, the 2021 United States Senate election in Georgia, and the 2020 special election. The PAC changed its name to Democracy Defense Action in 2023. The Midas Touch name continues to be used by the Midas Touch Network, the news organization. So here's the history. The committee was founded in March 2020 by three brothers from Long Island while in quarantine due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, liberal money grift. One of the brothers, Ben Meiselas, an attorney who represented the former NFL player Colin Kaepernick. Another brother, Brett Brett Meiselas, and is an Emmy-winning video editor who worked for the Ellen DeGeneres Show. The third brother, Jutan, is a marketing supervisor living in Brooklyn, New York. The group name and slogan came from their mother and father, combining their surname and their mother's maiden name, Golden, alluding to the mythological Greek Midas, known for his ability to turn everything he touched into gold. On July 21st, 2023, Midas Touch filed paperwork to rename itself Democracy Defense Action, and later that year, news reporting indicated that Midas Touch name was being used for a news network called Midas Touch Network. So you get the idea. I also found this article from Rolling Stone from back in April of 2021, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just to give you an idea who these people are, they're basically disingenuous Trump smear machine that makes a bunch of money grifting off liberals, pushing stuff like the Epstein shit. The trouble with Midas Touch, the brothers behind the breakout anti-Trump pack are the golden boys of the resistance, but when Rolling Stone took a look beneath the surface, their response turned Trumpian, by Seth Hetna. But the full story, I just pulled this one quote. There's like a paragraph or two in. The full story of Midas Touch is more complicated. The group spent more than $1 million on an advertising strategy that it calls revolutionary, but campaign veterans and independent experts say is nonsensical and a more effective tool for fundraising than for helping Democrats win elections. Exactly. Lincoln Project is the same thing. A bunch of conservatives grifting off liberals who take your money and win nothing. And despite its promised transparency, Midas Touch's financial structure makes a dollar-for-dollar accounting of its spending impossible. And according to a former Federal Election Commission attorney, raises some of the same legal issues that got the Trump campaign into trouble back in 2020.